It was exactly 7:02 a.m. I remember because the microwave clock had just blinked at me as I poured my second slightly pathetic cup of lukewarm coffee. I was in pajamas that had long since lost their dignity, plaid pants, a hoodie with a hole in the sleeve, and socks that had seen better decades. My dog, Max, was curled up on the couch, snoring louder than a freight train. Outside, birds chirped, sprinklers clicked on, and the neighborhood seemed peaceful, quiet, normal. Then boom! A sound so loud, so violent, it made the entire house shudder like it had just been slapped by Godzilla. The floor trembled. Max jumped 2 feet in the air, barking like we were being invaded. I dropped my coffee mug, which exploded on the tile like ceramic confetti, and that's when I saw it. A full-size Lexus SUV had just crashed through my living room wall. No exaggeration. Not a fender dent. The entire front half of the car was now inside my house. Drywall chunks rained from the ceiling like fake snow. Plastered dust swirled in the air like smoke from a grenade. One of my throw pillows was literally impaled on her front bumper. And sitting behind the wheel, airbags deployed, hands calmly resting at 10 and 2, was Karen. Not just any Karen. The Karen. The tyrannical president of our HOA, the woman who once fined my neighbor for painting his fence a non-compliant beige, the same woman who knocked on my door last month because my trash bins were out for 5 extra minutes. And now, she had just parked her luxury SUV in the middle of my living room. She didn't seem panicked, or hurt, or even confused. She adjusted her sunglasses, took a slow, self-important breath, and glanced around my living room like she was inspecting a hotel lobby that didn't meet her standards. Still in shock, I ran over to the car, stepping over broken bricks and what used to be my IKEA bookshelf. "Karen, how did you even?" She calmly unbuckled her seatbelt like this was a routine Starbucks drive-thru stop. Stepped out, brushed drywall dust off her cashmere cardigan, then looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Your mailbox distracted me." "Excuse me? My mailbox?" She pointed dramatically, like she was giving courtroom testimony towards the street, where my humble black mailbox had stood peacefully for 11 years. It hadn't moved. It hadn't grown fangs. It hadn't thrown itself at her car like a possessed transformer. But apparently it was to blame. Before I could even begin to process the absurdity, she added, "This is technically your fault. I'm calling the HOA lawyer." That's when I knew I wasn't just living a nightmare. I was starring in an HOA horror movie. "Karen," I said, blinking, "you drove into my house. You broke my wall. My couch is under your tire." She looked down at the flattened furniture and shrugged. "You really shouldn't put large furniture in front of vulnerable walls. It's a safety hazard." My jaw dropped. Max growled. Karen pulled out her phone, started tapping like she was ordering takeout, then looked up and said, without a hint of irony, "Also, you'll need to pay for my bumper." That's when I realized this wasn't going to be an apology. It was going to be war. Within 10 minutes of the crash, my entire front yard looked like the set of a disaster movie. Fire trucks, 2 police cars, and one extremely annoyed city inspector who looked like he regretted every life decision that led him to this address. Max, my dog, was still barking at the crushed remains of our front wall like he was going to bite him back. And me? I was still barefoot, still in my pajama hoodie, trying to explain to 3 different uniformed people that I didn't invite a Lexus into my living room. Meanwhile, Karen stood next to her SUV, which was still very much embedded in my house, casually filing her nails like this was just another Tuesday. One of the officers approached her and asked, "Ma'am, can you tell me how exactly this happened?" Karen didn't miss a beat. She flipped her freshly permed hair, adjusted her sunglasses, and said with full confidence, "His mailbox is too close to the sidewalk. It's a visual obstruction." I blinked. A visual obstruction? The same mailbox that's been there since 2012? The one that literally she approved as HOA president? The one we had a 3-hour HOA meeting about when I first moved in because she wanted to match the community aesthetic? Yeah, that mailbox. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and found the exact PDF approval letter from the HOA. Signed at the bottom in curly script, Karen J. Willoughby, president, but logic didn't matter to Karen. It never did. I tried to show the officer, but Karen held up her hand. This is between my lawyer and his homeowner's insurance. Please respect my process. Respect her what now? She crashed into my house, and now she wanted me to respect her process? I should have seen it coming. 2 days later, as I was attempting to board up the hole in my wall with leftover plywood from a failed garden project, I noticed something taped to my broken front door. A legal notice. From Karen. She was suing me for $4,700 in damages. At first, I thought it was a prank, like a joke letter from The Onion or something. But nope, it was real. Her written claim was a masterpiece of delusion. She wrote, "The homeowner's irresponsibly constructed wall caused irreparable damage to my personal vehicle due to a lack of emergency warning signs, reflectors, or hazard markers indicating a solid obstruction in the path of travel." Yes, you read that right. My wall assaulted her car. According to her, I should have had warning signs on my own house. Should I have hired a guy to stand outside with a flag and a whistle every time a Karen rode past in her SUV? It gets better. She also submitted the claim to the HOA board as a community violation. In her complaint, she argued that my house's placement endangered public safety. She even had the nerve to label it reckless structural positioning resulting in vehicular trauma. Vehicular trauma? You'd think she'd hit a dragon, not drywall. And yes, she wanted me fined. By the very board she ran. Her proposal? I pay her $4,700 in damages. I'd be fined an additional $1,000 for neighbor endangerment. I moved my mailbox back exactly 14 inches. I laughed out loud when I read it. But I wasn't laughing long, because 3 days later, I got an official email from the HOA. They were calling a special emergency hearing about my so-called dangerous property layout. Karen wasn't done. In fact, she was just getting started. And somehow the HOA was actually listening to her. You'd think the HOA board would laugh her right out of the meeting. I mean, come on, she drove her car through my wall like the Kool-Aid man in a Lexus. How could anyone take her seriously? But no, Karen didn't just run the HOA. She ruled it like a queen sitting on a porcelain throne of parking violations and passive-aggressive newsletters. This woman had built a mini empire of fear, complete with bylaws, spreadsheets, and a terrifying amount of clipboards. When I walked into the emergency HOA meeting, I felt like I'd entered a weird cross between a courtroom drama and a fourth-grade science fair. Karen was already at the front, dressed like she was on trial at The Hague. Power suit, color-coded binder, and a giant projector screen that read, "Why Trevor's Wall is a Menace to the Neighborhood." I couldn't believe it. She actually made PowerPoint slides. Slide 1, a wide-angle photo of the crash site. My porch couch, flattened beneath her SUV, with my dog Max mid-bark in the corner like he was about to call his lawyer. Slide 2, a crudely drawn diagram with arrows and labels claiming that sunlight reflected off my mailbox into her eyes, causing temporary blindness and loss of vehicular control. One arrow pointed at my mailbox and said, "Retinal Assault Zone." Slide 3 was where things went fully off the rails. Karen had filmed a dramatic reenactment using her niece's Barbie Jeep. She used ketchup for impact and slow-motion replay to show the moment her niece's pink plastic SUV hit a cardboard box labeled Trevor's Dangerous Wall. She even added sound effects. People, actually, clapped. I sat there in stunned silence as the board members nodded thoughtfully like she was presenting a Nobel Prize-winning theory. It was surreal, like being gaslit by a suburban improv troupe. The 5 board members were a mixed bag. One guy clearly just came for the snacks. 2 looked like they feared Karen more than IRS audits. 1 was her cousin, and the last one, I think he was asleep behind his clipboard. Karen closed her presentation by pulling out an actual laser pointer. She pointed at me like a cat trying to instigate war. This homeowner endangered our community with poor architectural decisions and non-reflective surfaces. I moved to fine him $1,000 and demand full payment for my vehicle repairs. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to me. I raised my hand, trying to stay calm despite the fact that I was currently being prosecuted by a woman who used a Barbie Jeep crash video as evidence. Hi. Just to clarify, Did I crash my house into your car, or did you crash your car into my house? Karen narrowed her eyes and hissed, "Don't gaslight me, Trevor." Gaslight? She plowed a 2-ton vehicle through my living room, and I was gaslighting her? At this point, I half expected Ashton Kutcher to pop out and yell, "You've been punked." But nope, this was real life. The board whispered among themselves, then announced the decision: we will hold a vote next week. All arguments and documentation must be submitted by Friday. I had 7 days. 7 days to gather evidence, make my case, and somehow convince a room full of brainwashed HOA zombies that Karen was full of hot air and cold entitlement. And I had no slideshow, no Barbie Jeep, just a Ring doorbell camera and a whole lot of righteous fury. At this point, I had 2 choices: cry into a pint of Rocky Road while Karen fined me into financial ruin, go full detective mode, and burn her paper-thin case to the ground. Naturally, I chose option 2. My weapons of choice? Logic, the kind Karen seemed immune to. My Ring doorbell camera, the unsung hero of suburban justice. I went full Sherlock Holmes. Cue the montage music. I sat at my desk, pulling up the security footage like I was analyzing a crime scene in a police procedural. There it was, time-stamped, HD clarity, 7:01 and 58 seconds a.m. Karen's Lexus creeps through the stop sign. No full stop. No hesitation. 7:02 and 3 seconds a.m., she's holding her phone up like she's filming a TikTok recipe. 7:02 and 6 seconds a.m. Her SUV swerved slightly right, into my yard. 7:02 and 7 seconds a.m. crunch. She demolishes my beloved lawn gnome, Sir Gnomes a lot. 7:02 and 8 seconds a.m. She panics, yanks the wheel left, floors it. 7:02 and 9 seconds a.m. Boom, straight into my living room. It was all in 1080p, baby, with sound. You could even hear her shout, "Oh, crap," right before impact. But wait, there's more. I remember that HOA document she had made me file when I moved in, something about mailbox compliance. I dug through my old files, which had previously been serving as a glorified coffee coaster pile, until I found it: mailbox location approved. Signed by Karen J. Willoughby, HOA President date, March 11, 2014, bingo. I printed 10 color copies, 1 for each board member, 1 for my lawyer, 1 for me to dramatically wave around, and 1 to frame later out of spite. But I wasn't done yet. I had an ace up my sleeve. My buddy Jeff, a field producer at the local news station. I sent him the Ring footage, the documents, in a 1-line text: "You're gonna love this HOA drama." He called me 5 minutes later, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. "Trevor, this is gold. I'm putting this on the 6 o'clock. Next thing I knew, my quiet cul-de-sac was all over the local evening news under the headline: HOA President blames wall for her own car crash. It showed the crash footage, the Barbie reenactment, the mailbox drama, complete with a voiceover that said, "Some residents say this is just the latest in a long pattern of questionable HOA behavior." Karen was livid. She texted me 17 times in all caps, "You made me a meme. My niece's Barbie Jeep was private property. Remove this video or I'll sue you for defamation." Too late. The internet had already crowned her Karen the Kool-Aid wall crasher. Someone even photoshopped her SUV burst into a wall of Capri Sun boxes. And now it was time for the grand finale, the HOA meeting. The room was packed. People who had never shown up to board meetings were now clutching popcorn. It was standing room only. I walked in like I was entering a courtroom, USB drive in hand, colored printouts under my arm, my hoodie replaced by a blazer because I was here to destroy. Karen was already there, with a new slideshow, of course. Title: "Why Ring cameras are an invasion of privacy." I kid you not. She was arguing that my doorbell camera had violated her rights because it dared to film her driving into my house. Too late. I plugged in my USB. They played the video on the projector. Dead silence. You could hear the part where she ran over Sir Gnomesod. You could hear her shout, "Oh, crap." When the footage ended, no one clapped. They just stared at Karen. Finally, Mr. Patel, one of the board members who usually didn't say a word, leaned into his mic and said, "This is the dumbest lawsuit I've ever seen in my life." Then he turned to Karen. "Ma'am, respectfully, you owe him an apology." The board voted 5-0 in my favor. Her lawsuit? Dismissed. Her fines? Voided. My mailbox? Vindicated. As for Karen, she sat there stunned, like she'd just been unplugged from her own delusion. And me? I was just getting started with the petty payback. You'd think it ended after the 5-0 HOA vote. I thought so too. I mean, how much more damage could Karen do after crashing into my house, trying to sue me, losing in public, and becoming an internet meme? But nope, Karen wasn't the type to take an L and walk away. She was the type to lose a game, then flip the board and accuse you of cheating. Exactly 3 days after her lawsuit was officially dismissed, I received another envelope taped to my brand new temporary plywood door. Inside was an invoice, typed, formatted, numbered, signed, yes, signed, with a glittery pink pen that said, "Boss Babe." The subject line? Claim for emotional damages due to HOA board hostility and public humiliation. I read it twice. Itemized charges included stress-related insomnia, $600 damage to personal reputation in neighborhood Facebook group, $900 deposit for emotional support cat, Whiskers, $200 retail therapy via Starbucks gift cards, $45 grand total, $1,745 due in 10 days. At the bottom, in Comic Sans font, she wrote, "Failure to pay will result in reporting you to the Neighborhood Watch for psychological terrorism." Psychological terrorism, because her bumper kissed my drywall. So, I did the only logical thing. I went online and ordered a giant bouquet of flowers, bright pink, with glitter-dipped roses, extra dramatic, and I added a card that read, "Sorry your car lost a fight with my house. Get well soon. Red heart." Then, because I'm a gentleman, I included a $10 gift card to her favorite local salon, just enough to cover one eyebrow wax, but not a full service. I had it hand-delivered by a local floral service with sparkles and a ribbon. I even requested they read the card aloud. Apparently, Karen nearly choked on her protein shake. 1 hour later, I heard a knock at my door. It was the police. But not just any officer, the same cop who responded to the original crash. He held up a paper in one hand and the bouquet in the other. "She's reporting you for harassment." I blinked. "Because of the flowers?" He nodded, holding back laughter. "And the card." He looked down, read it again, and burst out laughing. He laughed so hard he had to sit on my porch bench. "Legally? You're fine. Morally? This is gold. Personally? You might want to start building a moat." Karen didn't press charges, but she did send one final email to the entire HOA listserv titled "A Warning About Weaponized Kindness." 2 weeks later, she officially resigned from the HOA board. Her resignation letter blamed the toxic community culture, lack of empathy for traffic-related trauma, and an alarming rise in anti-Karen sentiment. She moved 3 blocks over to another HOA neighborhood. Rumor says they don't allow Ring doorbells there. Party Popper Outro, the aftermath, extended. I got a brand new wall. My insurance even threw in some free home upgrades to increase future vehicle resistance. The Karen crash cam footage is still circulating online. Last I checked, it has over 3 million views. There's even a remix with dubstep and sirens. People start sending me gifts, mostly gnome-related. One anonymous neighbor left a coffee mug on my doorstep that read, "Watch out. My walls bite." Another mailed me a plush version of Sir Gnome's Odd, complete with a tiny crutch and bandages. As for Karen, she now drives very slowly through the neighborhood, stops at every stop sign, wears 2 pairs of sunglasses on sunny days, and never makes eye contact with me. My mailbox? Still standing. Still glorious. Still triggering emotional lawsuits. Direct hit call to action for viewers. Speech Balloon ever had to deal with a power-hungry HOA president or a neighbor who made your life a sitcom? Drop your story in the comments. We're building a wall of wild neighbor tales. Thumbs up if this story made you laugh, cringe, or yell "no way" at your screen. Hit that like button. It helps us more than Karen hates accountability. Bell, don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable true stories. 2 new episodes every week. Red Heart, help this channel reach monetization because telling these stories takes time, therapy, and a strong wall.